Most people think debt is dangerous. They avoid it at all costs. They are taught that debt will destroy their life. But here's the strange truth. The richest people in the world use debt almost every day. And instead of making them poorer, debt actually makes them richer. So what do they know that most people don't? In this video, we'll break down how rich people use debt to build massive wealth, and why understanding this concept could completely change the way you think about money. Let's start with the biggest mindset shift. Most people see debt as a liability. Rich people see debt as a tool. A hammer can build a house, or it can break a window. The tool itself isn't good or bad. It depends on how you use it. Poor and middle-class people usually take on bad debt. This is debt used to buy things that lose value. For example, credit cards for shopping, car loans for expensive vehicles, financing for luxury items. These things do not produce money. They only cost money. That's why this kind of debt keeps people stuck. But wealthy people do something completely different. They use good debt. Good debt helps them make more money. And that changes everything. The first way rich people use debt is through real estate. Imagine you want to buy a rental property. The house costs $500,000. Most people think they need the full $500,000 in cash, but wealthy investors rarely pay the full amount. Instead, they might put down $100,000 and borrow the remaining $400,000 from a bank. Now they control a $500,000 asset, but they only used a fraction of their own money. This is called leverage, and leverage is one of the biggest wealth-building tools in the world. Now let's say that house generates $2,500 per month in rent. After paying the mortgage and expenses, maybe the investor keeps $500 profit every month. That's $6,000 a year. But remember, they only invested $100,000 of their own money. And here's where it gets interesting. If the house value rises from $500,000 to $600,000, the investor just gained $100,000 in equity. That's the same as their original investment. Debt allowed them to double their money without paying the full price up front. That's how leverage works. The second way rich people use debt is through business growth. Starting or expanding a business often requires money, equipment, marketing, employees, inventory. Instead of waiting years to save the cash, many entrepreneurs borrow money to grow faster. Imagine a business owner who takes a $50,000 loan. They use it for advertising. That advertising brings in $200,000 in new sales. Even after paying back the loan and expenses, they might still keep a large profit. In this case, debt wasn't a burden. It was fuel for growth. This is why many successful companies borrow money, because if the return is bigger than the interest, the debt actually creates wealth. The third strategy is something called asset-backed borrowing. This is a strategy used by many billionaires. Instead of selling their investments and paying taxes, they borrow money against their assets. Let's say someone owns $10 million in stocks. If they sell the stocks, they might owe millions in taxes. But instead, they go to a bank. The bank sees the $10 million portfolio and offers them a loan. Maybe $1 million. Now the investor has cash to spend, but they did not sell their investments. So the stocks continue to grow, and they avoided large taxes. Many wealthy people live this way. They borrow against assets instead of selling them. Their wealth keeps growing in the background. Another powerful reason rich people use debt is inflation. Inflation means that money loses value over time. Things become more expensive. But here's the trick. Debt becomes cheaper over time. Imagine you borrow $200,000 today. 20 years from now, because of inflation, that same $200,000 will feel much smaller. You are paying back the loan with future dollars that are worth less. Meanwhile, the asset you bought, like real estate, may have increased in value. This means inflation is actually helping the borrower, and wealthy investors understand this very well. Rich people also use debt to protect their cash. Cash is powerful. It gives flexibility. It allows investors to jump on new opportunities. If someone spends all their money buying assets outright, they lose liquidity. But if they use debt strategically, they keep their cash available. For example, instead of paying $1 million cash for a property, an investor might put $200,000 down and finance the rest. Now they still have $800,000 available. That money can be used for new investments, new businesses, or other opportunities. Debt helps them do more with the same amount of money. But there is something very important to understand. Rich people do not use debt recklessly. They are very careful. They ask one simple question before borrowing money. Will this debt make me more money? If the answer is no, they usually avoid it. This is the difference between consumer debt and investment debt. Consumer debt buys things that go down in value. Investment debt buys things that produce income or grow in value. And that small difference can completely change your financial future. Another strategy wealthy investors use is refinancing. Let's say someone buys a property for $400,000. Years later, the value rises to $700,000. Instead of selling the property, they refinance it. This means the bank gives them a new loan based on the higher value. Maybe the investor pulls out $200,000 in cash, but they still keep the property, and the property continues generating rent. That $200,000 can now be used to buy another property, then another, and another. This is how many real estate investors build large property portfolios. They recycle debt again and again, turning one investment into many. But here is the truth most people never hear. Debt is powerful, but it can also be dangerous. If someone borrows money for things that don't produce income, the debt becomes a trap. High credit card balances, expensive cars, luxury lifestyles, these things create payments, but no returns. That's why financial education is so important, because the same tool that builds wealth can also destroy it. Think of debt like fire. Used carefully, fire can cook food and warm a house. Used carelessly, it can burn everything down. Wealthy people learn how to control the fire, and that's why it works for them. Let's quickly recap the key ideas. Rich people use debt to control bigger assets. They use leverage to multiply their investments. They borrow money to grow businesses faster. They borrow against assets instead of selling them. They benefit from inflation, making debt cheaper over time. And they use refinancing to expand their investments. But most importantly, they only take on debt that has the potential to make more money. If you start thinking about money this way, your entire financial strategy can change. Instead of asking, how can I avoid debt forever? You start asking, how can I use money as a tool? Because wealth is rarely built by playing small. It's built by understanding how the system works and learning how to use that system to your advantage. Here's the motivational truth. Almost every wealthy person started with limited resources, but they learned something powerful. Money is not just something you earn. It's something you control and multiply. The moment you begin to understand financial tools like leverage, your opportunities start to expand. The world of money begins to look very different, and your future becomes much bigger. So remember this. Debt doesn't automatically make people poor. Bad decisions do. Used wisely, debt can become one of the most powerful wealth-building tools in the world. The key is knowledge. The key is discipline. And the key is learning to make money work for you instead of against you. Because once you understand that, you stop fearing the system, and you start using it.